Welcome to the Station Wagon. I'm the older brother, Mark.
And I'm little sister, Julie. This is the podcast where my brother and I give up something we take for granted and tell you how it goes.
Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Station Wagon.
In this episode, we're giving up dressing down, meaning we're going to stop being total slobs, and we're going to start dressing fancy.
Thanks to Sandlin Seguin and Carrie Speratos for helping us prepare for this episode.
If you have ideas of things we could give up, not you, Mark. If you...
I do have some ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure. The wonderful people out there, please send your suggestions to wagonpodcast@gmail.com. Shout out to us on Twitter. We are @WagonPod. Or connect with us on Facebook.
Yeah, and I do have a definition of what fancy means to us, and so that's really important here. First of all, this being fancy or giving up slovenliness is huge. It's a very deep topic, spans all of human history, and I didn't know if you knew this, but there are at least 2 or 3 men's and women's magazines, periodicals dedicated to this concept.
Yeah, I'm aware.
According to Merriam-Webster, basically what we're talking about here is just not being plain or ordinary. I think I really like that definition because, first of all, we can bend it to our will and make it be like in relation to us. It's not saying that we have to wear a top hat and a monocle all the time, right? But just not being plain or ordinary relative to the way we usually are. The way we usually are, then, is the plain or ordinary.
Fancy.
You ready for the quiz? For our fancy quiz?
I'm going to so kick this quiz's butt this time.
What is a neff? Okay, here's your 3 choices.
A neck warmer.
A vessel to hold salt. That was a good guess. A type of bow tie worn at Harvard fancy dinner parties. The sound Victorians made when sneezing. Neff.
A.
Yes, it's a vessel to hold salt. Good job. Yes. During the medieval era, they really didn't use any kind of fancy place settings. But the one thing that they generally did have was a neff to hold the salt on the table. Salt was extremely valuable.
Cool.
Yeah, number 2. Okay, who wears Tom Ford dinner jackets when going out for the evening? Me, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, or James Bond?
Clinton.
James Bond.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So is that some fancy designer?
Yeah, it's some fancy designer. He wears an ivory Tom Ford dinner jacket in the upcoming movie Spectre.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I actually looked it up, and at least the one that you can buy off the shelf, like online, is $1,000.
Oh, you could totally save up for that instead of college for the kids.
Absolutely right. You could probably use a Get for it. Under which of these circumstances would the host or hostess of an official military dinner need to give up their seat at the head of the table? A, a movie star or other celebrity is in attendance. B, an outranking officer or political figure is present. Or C, a president, king, or queen of a country is in attendance.
Definitely C.
Definitely right.
Tell me the history of being fancy.
I would love to tell you the history of being fancy. So what I did is put together a history, Julie, that might feel a bit random because it's not just about being fancy. It's also about some of those things that people have thought of as non-ordinary, and also some important milestones for what got us away from being fancy. So all that kind of stuff is combined in my history. Just wanted to preface it that way.
This is such a tremendously huge topic. Definitely get that it's a scattershot approach.
Starting with the wonderful Roman Empire. So did you know that typically Romans wore a tunic, but when they got fancy, they would wear their toga?
Oh, I did not realize that. Wait, what's the difference between a tunic has 2 shoulders covered and a toga has 1?
It's a much simpler garment. Yeah, 2 shoulders are generally covered. It's generally just kind of, I think it just hangs over the body, where a toga is a humongous piece of fabric that wraps very complexly around your body.
So costing more because there's more fabric.
It costs a lot more. And it would actually be worn to separate the upper classes from the workmen and slaves because they were by law not allowed to wear togas.
So it's a very clear, hey, I'm fancier than you demarcation.
Exactly, totally.
Okay.
And some togas, if you were in the Senate, you'd have like a purple stripe down the front of yours. So there were even additions to the toga that made it even fancier. So moving on to 500 CE, the medieval era. So the middle class started to afford expensive and luxurious fabrics that were shipped in from places like Egypt. So they had more wealth to dress well, and they had little else to spend their extra money on. So they invested in a lot of clothing that they didn't mind showing off. So really, the medieval era is when people started to import into Europe and Western cultures nicer fabrics. Around 1558 was the start of the Elizabethan era. And there were actually laws that imposed what the different classes could wear. So more of this idea that laws existed to tell people who could be fancy and who couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty weird to think about that. Now we're banded by how much money you have and the creativity that you have to be fancy, right?
Right.
But imagine living where laws indicate this. For example, the upper class and royals were permitted to wear clothing made out of different types of expensive and rare materials, such as fur, velvet, silk, and blah, blah, blah. And only Queen Elizabeth could put gold on her outfit.
So, in addition to needing to be able to afford it, I mean, like, not everyone could afford gold, of course.
Right.
It's also, even if you could afford it, just not being allowed to.
Not being allowed to, exactly. In 1780s-ish, the table setting became a form of expression. Remember I was saying before that, like in the medieval era, the table setting really wasn't seen as being that important. It was more functional, more utilitarian. Yeah, so in 1780s, the table setting became a really nice form of expression for individuals to, quote, express the desire to escape from daily life to a fantasy world. And you can see that even today when you do a Google search for table setting ideas. In 1872, Emily Post is born.
Yay, you're a hero.
My hero. And if you can ever stop Kendra, she'll tell you a great and wonderful story of our first date and how Emily Post figures into that.
Okay.
And why she's still with me, I thank her every day. So Emily Post was the author and founder of the Emily Post Institute, founded in 1946. According to their mission statement, they continue to promote etiquette and civility in America and around the world. And what's interesting to me about this is that people consider etiquette to be fancy. Would you agree with that?
No, I do not. I think etiquette is something that happens daily, and maybe perhaps like antiquated etiquette that people don't do anymore is fancy just because it's old and, again, out of the ordinary. But the way I describe etiquette, especially table manners, to my kids is the essence of table manners is not grossing out everyone around you. So really, most of the table manners that are essential, like chewing with your mouth closed, using a napkin, is just so that it doesn't put everybody off their food.
Right.
Okay.
So 1940, the idea of ready-to-wear clothing is born. So before then, if you wanted like a nice suit or a nice dress or whatever, you had to go and get it tailored. And if you couldn't afford that, you were kind of screwed.
No, you made it yourself, doofus.
Right. Sorry, you made it yourself.
People weren't just naked who couldn't afford.
Right. I don't know what I was thinking. But it really began a trend cycle in retail. So it's really interesting because now retailers and the manufacturers of ready-to-wear clothing, people could become more fancy, but instead of buying some outfit that would last you many, many years, or making one that would do the same, now people were being influenced by what is fancy on a yearly basis.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because as things are mass produced, they're cheaper and easier to make.
And also they need to sell.
You can change the fashion so much faster.
Right.
Whereas in, like maybe the Regency and Victorian era, when the flounces changed, you just tailored your old dress to have the new flounce.
Right.
Instead of having a whole new one.
Flounce.
It's a thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is. But.
All right, good. 1966, Aloha Friday began. This is the beginning of the casualization of America.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so basically
66, huh?
in 66, the Hawaiian garment industry was trying to sell more shirts, and so they started marketing Aloha Friday, where people would wear Hawaiian shirts in Hawaii on Friday, and it gradually spread to America. In 1970,
Hawaii's part of America.
Thank you, Hawaii. You are, I guess it's just because I've never been there, I don't believe it exists.
Until you see it.
Until I see it.
You could say continental United States.
Hawaii, we're looking for sponsors. 1970, the Bedazzler was invented.
Oh my gosh. I never had a bedazzler, but someone very close to us recently invested in one.
Really?
Dad.
Oh, yeah, he's made bedazzled hats, right?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, Dad. We love you, Dad.
We do.
1976, the National Fancy Rat Society was founded.
What the hell?
1900.
No, wait, don't pass that up. What does that mean?
Oh, you want to hear more about the National Fancy Rat Society?
Yeah.
So this was the first ever rats-only animal organization, and it set the standards for what is a fancy rat, published a newsletter, and held shows.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And I only included this, A, because they're fancy. If you look at the picture in our show notes, you'll definitely see that it's a fancy rat. And B, when I took the kids to the pet shop the other day, or to Petco, they had two types of rats. They had like just rat for sale, and then they had fancy rats.
So is rat like what's in my garage?
Yes, probably. Most likely. A long time ago, it was okay to like have rats for sporting events, where you would basically have a big pit of rats and send a rat dog in there, and or dogs, and whichever dog would kill the most rats won. And there were some people who would collect out the rats which had the most interesting colors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they would breed those rats and came up with the fancy rat breed.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fancy rats. 1990s, Casual Fridays was born in the U.S., brought to you by Levi's and Dockers.
Oh, really? It was like one of those kinds of promotional things?
Right. It was during the recession of the 90s, and Levi's did a genius thing and opportunistically marketed to HR folks all over the country, suggesting a guide to casual business wear, focusing on Dockers and button-down shirts and stuff. And companies bought into it as a way during the recession to give their employees a free perk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And everything has just gone to hell in a handbasket since then. Can you tell us some sciencey stuff about being fancy?
Love to tell you sciencey stuff. So
all right.
It does seem that if you dress more nicely, it does demonstrate your professionalism and also just kind of your respect for the task at hand, or for your responsibility. So in other words, you wouldn't want your surgeon to come in to consult with you about cancer wearing, some grubby, yucky clothes. People do take note of this without even realizing it when they're judging teachers, therapists, other professionals. Again, back to the first impressions. Like, you know what you're doing. You belong there. You're not that imposter. Also, it can help your career in that it takes away the distraction of worrying about what you look like. For example, if you go into work and you feel like, ugh, I hate this shirt. I look like just such a schlub. I feel terrible in these clothes. That's a distraction. If you can go to work with that confidence that you feel like, oh yeah, I look great today. This is totally a professional outfit. I know what I'm doing. I'm wearing my lucky jacket or this awesome outfit. Then that's one less thing that's going to distract you during your day. It's going to give you that boost of confidence. We know that confidence can help us achieve great things.
Do you think that there could be an evil flip side of that, where if you're spending all this time preparing yourself and dressing nice, then you are intentionally being self-conscious?
Well,
and that might follow you throughout the day.
That could definitely be. Or, for example, if you place too much emphasis on it and then you spill ketchup on your shirt, does that ruin it for you? I mean, it's kind of like a
that never happens
pull.
to you, though, right?
Me, never. No,
okay,
no, because I know not to wear white anymore.
Okay.
There's this concept of self-efficacy that's been in the psychology literature since the late 70s, thanks to Bandura. The idea that I can achieve something, is the feeling of self-efficacy. So it's a little bit more than confidence. One really interesting set of studies, they had students come in and bring two outfits. One they would wear to a job interview, and one just the regular clothes that they would wear to class. And then they randomly assigned the participants, who were, just college students.
Right.
Where half of them had to wear their nice interview outfit and half of them had to wear just their regular clothes.
Okay.
And then they gave them a whole series of different tests and different kinds of conditions. And they found the folks who were wearing their nicer outfits were able to reach kind of their cognitive potential. They did better on cognitive tests.
The people who are wearing nice clothes did better on tests.
That's right. And tests of abstract thinking. So, in other words, if it was just like, what's 2 + 2? What's 4 + 4? But like the college version of that,
right.
it didn't affect
That's
that.
like 12 + 12.
Right, exactly. Yes, the really
I
hard
got it.
stuff.
Yeah.
You're good at this.
Thank you.
So in other words, if you want to do some strategic planning for your organization, that's probably the day that you want to be dressed more nicely.
Right.
Other study, they did something kind of similar where folks were randomly distributed into two groups and they were wearing their own clothes. They believed that they were more efficacious. They believed that they were more able when they were in their nicer clothes. So the individuals who were randomly assigned to put on their own nice clothes, later in the day, they had to make statements about themselves and rate their own worth and value and skills. The people who were dressed more nicely rated their own selves as higher ranking. And this is independent of socioeconomic status and different things like that. It really had an internalizing effect. They internalized their nice clothes to have this nice stuff about them. So you could see how that would affect you in the workplace. Let's say you have a really challenging day. You go into it dressed nicely. You're going to internalize, yeah, I can do this. I'm the kind of guy who wears a suit to work. Sure, I can write this document.
Yeah.
But dressing nicely can be distancing. It can demonstrate professionalism, but it makes others feel like you might be a little bit more standoffish. So if your goal is to develop a really close sense of rapport with others, then wearing your fancy suit might not be the best thing.
Okay.
So think about political candidates. When they are going out and doing the meet and greet and shaking hands and kissing babies, their handlers always make them wear polo shirts, like when they're at the country barbecue. That's not when they wear a suit. They need to look approachable. Again, like a lot of the things we've looked at, a little bit goes a long way. A little bit of fancy is good. Too much fancy might make others feel a little weird around you.
Okay.
So let's go back to what we're actually going to do.
So based on that definition, here's what I'm willing to do.
Okay.
I'm going to dress up at work at home. For me, that means like nice pants or, quote, slacks, shoes. I don't know if people even say slacks anymore.
Trousers.
Trouser pants, shoes, tie, and a coat until my coats run out.
Okay.
And my pants run out. So then also at meals, I'm going to set a formal place setting for myself with candles, metal flatware, tablecloth, and cloth napkins.
Can you bring candles to work?
I bought LED electric candles.
Oh my gosh.
They look awesome.
Yeah, that sounds really fancy.
They are fancy. And actually, that's one of the suggestions that Sandlin and Kari gave me.
Okay, it'll be very interesting to see where fancy, like the line between fancy and tacky.
Yeah, so what's the difference between fancy and tacky for people like us who had a hard time defining what fancy actually is? I'm just guessing that we might slip across that line every once in a while.
It's
or
possible.
maybe me more than you. Okay, so
I have most of the tools already for getting fancy. It's just I don't want to devote the time usually. So I'm going to be waking up early to do some typical female makeup kind of stuff, blow dry my hair instead of just putting it in a bun wet, which apparently going to work with wet hair, which is what I normally do, is not fancy.
Is that right? Okay.
That is right. I'm going to wear a nice outfit every day instead of just something comfortable that I can wear to do my desk cycle.
But don't you in your job, I mean, you're really a high level employee, so don't you usually wear like a business suit or something?
No, not usually. Only if I have a visitor or if I'm giving a big presentation.
Got it.
So I always dress a little bit nicer than business casual, but I wouldn't say I put like effort into it. You know,
Okay.
I have 4 favorite outfits I cycle through and then I just grab. Whereas I have more clothes that I could be wearing. It's just like, why bother? I know this other outfit works. And also normally I wear flats instead of heels, and I'm going to try to wear heels as much as I can.
Okay.
But you made a good point about the being at home part. So when I get home from work before everybody else and I change into just like the grubbiest, most horrible whatever is on my floor or workout clothes always. I mean, that's what I'm wearing all the time. And so my kids never see me dressed up nice. My poor husband barely does because I leave the house while everyone's asleep. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to actually putting in effort to looking nice at home for the people who matter the most.
Do you think for just the sake of the experiment, we can record or try to record how much extra time it takes us to do these things?
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Even if it's ballparking it.
Yeah,
you know,
let's
I think
do
that'd
that.
be interesting. Okay, listeners, we'll bring that back to you next time.
What are we going to do when we're teleworking and like on the weekends? Are we definitely going to dress to the same level of fancy or just fancier than we normally do?
I think fancier than we normally do. I mean,
Whew.
I'm
starting at a very low baseline.
right, exactly. This would be an easy episode for most normal people, not for us.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Or maybe it'll be especially easy for us because we can just do like a couple things and be like remarkably fancier than normal.
Exactly right. Yep.
So, what are are there any particulars that you're concerned about or things that you think are going to be hard aside from yard work?
I think the hardest thing for me will be to not run out of the fancy clothes.
Well, I'll say the hardest thing for me is going to be still conveying my nice feminist propaganda to my daughter.
Yeah.
While also putting on high heels and lipstick.
Oh, God.
Because I always
That's
say things
true.
like,
What are you gonna
Mommy's perfect just the way she is.
Right.
When I wear makeup, it's just for fun.
So what is she saying about this now?
She is really, really excited for this.
Oh, good. Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break. Well, actually, as always, a 2-week break while you listen to the Pleasure Kills. And when we come back, we will be very, very fancy and tell you all about it.
You know, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel confident. Feel like people take me more seriously. You know, in meetings, I feel like I've gotten as far as I have just for the sheer fact that I dressed up nicely.
I only dressed up today merely to support you, but also sort of to make fun of it. But what's funny is that I forget that when I do dress up, I feel way more professional. And just even walking around, my posture is better. So how it makes me feel is more like prepared for the day. And it's weird because it takes so much more time, but I found that like as I walked in here today, people just looked at me differently, and that also has impact on how I feel too.
It can sometimes be less comfortable. Depends, the vest, especially. Otherwise, though, it's like people talk a lot about it either being expensive or worrying about damaging nice clothing or being uncomfortable, but like, I find dress pants a lot more comfortable than jeans, and I get most of my stuff from like thrift stores and places, so it's not expensive.
Thank you, Armin, Molly, and Noah.
So, hey, Julie, welcome back.
Hi, Mark.
We've been dressing up for 2 weeks, right, Julie?
Yes, and you can see some pictures.
Yeah, but I gotta just come clean at the very beginning. I only did it for a week.
What? Are you serious?
Well, yeah, because for the first week I did it, and then for the second week I had a conference
Bastard.
with work in Las Vegas, and we were mandated to wear T-shirts the whole time because we're that company.
Can you please provide me a memo or email to that effect?
I think I can.
But did you wear a t-shirt tucked into nice trousers?
No, trousers.
And hard shoes?
No, I didn't. I wore jeans or like some similar ilk of clothing that wasn't jeans and
Sweatpants?
Not sweatpants.
Cut off. Did you wear jorts? Mark, if you wore jorts, I'm going to reach my hand
That sounds
through
great.
Skype.
I don't know what a jort is.
Jean shorts.
I had not chinos, even more casual than that. I don't know what you would call them.
Cargo pants.
Yes, that's what they are. Yes, exactly.
By the way, jorts is another excellent example of a portmanteau.
Which is what exactly?
Have you forgotten this? It's a word combining two other words like jeans, leggings,
Julie,
jeggings.
I'm so sorry. I usually keep that right on the tip of my brain for usage.
Okay, so your language isn't fancy, your clothes aren't fancy. What
Correct.
exactly did you do?
For the first week, I did everything by the book, okay? As you can see in the pictures, I wore my sports coat and a tie, except for Wednesday when I work from home. Mm-hmm. And usually what I do that day is don't shave or shower or get dressed.
So on that day, you actually brushed your teeth.
So on that day, I actually shaved and showered and put on business casual clothes.
Okay, good.
Which are like nice shoes, like, I don't know, chino, what'd you say, trousers?
Yeah.
And like a button-down shirt to like lounge around my house working.
Okay.
It was pretty weird, like the whole time, especially being in a super uber casual work environment. Mm-hmm. I stuck out like a sore thumb and just
what, in your kitchen?
Well, no, I mean like at work.
Oh, I thought you meant when you were teleworking.
No. And even Kieran, my carpool buddy, as soon as I got into the car dressed like that, he was like, wow, you look really nice today. And he had no idea what was going on or anything, but just it's so apparent when I dressed up.
How long did it take you to get ready? Did it take you extra time?
It took me a little bit of extra time, maybe like 15 minutes.
Oh, that's a long time. Why? What did you, just to gaze through your clothes? I mean, what were you
actually Kendra helped pick out my clothes.
So what were you doing? Were you just like, I need to get into the spirit of this?
Well, I had to shave every day. Normally, I don't really do that.
Okay.
So like even check around at your office, see if all the guys shave every day. I don't know. I think that's a thing. Okay. Maybe it's just my thing. I don't know. Right. Yeah, don't spread that around to our tens of listeners. Tying a tie is really cumbersome. And so, I'd have to do it and then undo it, especially when you don't do it every day. I'm out of practice. So it'd be too short or too long or too crooked. And so I just planned in the extra 15. So it was really like, at a minimum, like an extra 5 minutes.
Okay.
To get this dressy. Plus there was the lint rolling of all the cat hair off of my clothes because by the time I got from my bathroom to the front door, I was coated in cat hair that just sort of floats around the house. The biggest part of it for me was just the discomfort.
Oh, okay. So which aspect of it? The tie part?
Well, yeah, it's very uncomfortable for me to wear a tie. I don't know if everybody who wears a tie just can't stand it like I can, but it really, I can feel it around my neck just all day long, choking the life out of me, choking the soul out of my being. It was awful.
So you didn't like it, huh?
No, just wearing a sports coat, I just couldn't bend around or move very much. I needed that kind of jacket that James Bond wears. It's like double vented and lets him, jump onto the train while it's moving and stuff.
It's double vented a thing for real?
Yeah, I think so. No, I think that's a real thing from like that.
A dinner jacket?
Yeah, the dinner jacket that James Bond wears I think it's like double vented down the back and allows for like extra movement.
Oh, you mean like the back flaps, the butt flaps?
No, not
like
butt
one
flaps.
They're
like
in the middle.
No, they're like behind the
butt.
No, not the butt. They're behind the what do you call it? The scapulas.
Shoulder blades?
Yes. I didn't have that because I have a inexpensive non-James Bond jacket.
Okay.
Another thing that was interesting was one person was just guessing why I was dressed up because she didn't know about this podcast episode and what we were doing, but her line of questions went first to getting ready for a conference, a customer meeting, And then in an interview, that was her order. But basically, I got that over and over again, just the why and am I interviewing. And I had to tell people that even when I interviewed for a job at this place that I work at, I wasn't dressed up as nicely as I was.
Just the idea that, no, I'm just dressing up for work today. Or this is just how I'm going to be.
That was kind of insane.
On the first day, I got, oh, you look nice, that kind of thing. But no big surprise. And I don't know if that's because of the environment I work in. People just dress nicer, but I do think there's a gender component in my workplace and in other workplaces I've been in. I think the women tend to put more effort into it because that is how fashion is.
Do you mean that women are in your workplace, and it sounds like you're generalizing to workplaces in general? That's why I say you're generalizing. That women.
Oh, that's clever.
Was that clever? See what I did there? That women are just dressing up nicer in general than men?
Or that some do. And so therefore, when a woman does dress extra nice, it's just, oh, she's dressing nice today. Whereas if a man came to work in a suit, whereas he normally doesn't, I would assume there's a special event.
Mm-hmm.
In general, I really liked it. It made me feel very confident, just like we talked about. When I was in front of crowds, when I was doing crowd control.
Crowd control for the Department of Defense. That sounds really interesting.
I definitely felt like, oh yeah, I look good. At least I've got that thing going for me. So a couple interesting things. One is I wanted to use a curling iron and go all out. In fact, I bought a curling iron.
Now, wait a minute. Your hair is like mine, right? Super straight.
Yeah, if I brush it.
What? Wait a minute. Do you not brush your hair?
Sometimes.
Now, this reminds me. Okay, so I remember a time when you were growing up, when you were like 7 or 8, and you had some kind of matted knot in your hair for like weeks, and eventually they just had to cut it out. Is that an accurate memory?
No, you're really close though, and my kids have heard this cautionary tale so many times.
So what was it? What happened?
Okay, so I was secretly hiding this knot that got bigger and bigger by wearing a ponytail every day, and I didn't want to tell Mom, and I kept using like detangler on it.
But it wouldn't work?
Wouldn't work. It finally got so big. It was like basically a dreadlock, I think.
One dreadlock, which does not look very good.
No. Dreadlocks then.
How old were you?
I think I was 8 or 9 or possibly 10. It's embarrassing the older I am. But what happened was I thought they were going to have to cut it all out. And you went with me to the salon and held my hand, and two beauty shop guys. What are they called? Salonists?
Matrons?
Two matrons brushed and very, very gently got the knots out. And I remember you holding my hand and just because it hurt and it was uncomfortable and embarrassing. Man. And yeah, you were just awesome.
Wow, that is a great story. I am so awesome.
Back to me.
Okay, go ahead.
So this experience made me want to buy stuff.
Uh-huh.
I just found
what?
Like, I was like, ooh, maybe I should.
Like a new bedazzler?
Yeah, I was like, ooh, maybe I need another bedazzler to go with this, or it just made me.
What kind of
feel
stuff? I'm sorry,
like
what
another
kind of stuff?
business suit, or whereas normally I'm able to be complacent with my wardrobe. So I think just putting the effort in and thinking about it kind of tricks me into that, consumerism that I'm trying not to do. Sorry, I just kicked the microphone. So
it tricks you into doing what?
Into that consumerism that I try to avoid in order to stick to a budget. But it made me just want new clothes.
So were you actually like when I started dressing up, I started evaluating the way other people are dressed up, which is hard to do because no one else dresses up except for like 2 people who were interviewed. But were you doing that sort of thing? Evaluating?
Oh, totally. I didn't pick up any fashion magazines, but I did definitely like cast an eye around the office and be like, ooh, boots. Yeah, I'd like some boots. That kind of thing. I did do things like wear contact lenses and extra makeup and stuff. And
so how much extra time did all this add to your day?
Probably 10 minutes. Not that much.
Well, what about at the beginning and end of the day? Add both of those together, because I'm sure it's not just as easy as going to sleep with all your makeup on.
No, that's true. But I wear makeup anyway, so I still would have to take... It's not like I needed a chisel.
Okay, so the amount of makeup that you put on wasn't somehow different in scope.
It was,
or
but
scale.
The same amount of face washing at the end of the day took care of things.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I did have a crazy, crazy experience. Granted, I'm sure I can't attribute all of this to the clothes, but I witnessed a really bad car accident
Oh.
where everyone lived, but one car was in the middle of the highway and the other car was on its side and people were trapped inside of
Oh,
it.
boy.
Yeah, so really serious. And I
yeah.
parked my car and me and several other people ran out of our vehicles to go see what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I took charge of the situation, and I probably would have done that anyway because I'm bossy like that.
Yes, true.
But it seemed comfortable for the others to take direction from me, I guess. And I don't know if it's because I was the only one who was dressed up nicely. It was a Saturday, so I was wearing nice clothes. Everyone else was, in like, I didn't think about this aspect of it till afterwards, but everyone else was in just their, grungy workout Saturday stuff. I was saying, call 911 and to this person, make sure that blanket stays on him. He might be in shock, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And you stay with the people who are trapped in the car and keep talking to them. And after I checked to make sure that the people in the car weren't physically injured, they were just trapped, then I went to the people who were not trapped and checked them for first aid and things. And when the first responders got there, the real live first responders got out of the fire truck and turned to me immediately. And I said, I was making eye contact with them, but so were other people.
Right.
And I was able to say, those two need your attention first. They're trapped in the vehicle. It did harken back to the literature that we read, which
Right.
is if you're going to your doctor, you want your doctor to look like a doctor. Probably in that situation, people were looking for a leader anyway, because it's a really scary thing.
Yeah.
But that it probably didn't hurt that I was dressed nicely. So how much of this are you going to keep doing? It sounds like
Nothing.
definitely
Not one
keeping the
part of it.
tie.
Oh,
Ties and t-shirts.
one other thing that I did is the first day I gave myself a fancy lunch with candles and a tablecloth and stuff.
How'd that go?
That was really dumb.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it anymore.
A little contrived.
Yeah, a little contrived.
Well, I'm going to probably keep doing a lot of this, except not high heels.
Oh, okay.
There were a few times where I was thinking, oh, I should go walk over to so-and-so's cubicle and talk to them. And then I thought, I don't want to walk in these stupid shoes.
I'm going to do it when I feel like I want to be suit guy, but I don't think I'm ever going to wear a tie or jacket again to the office.
So maybe there's a happier medium that you need to experiment with.
Right. Wearing a t-shirt.
So, Marky, we have another idea for a future episode.
What is it?
From Sarah Eve Sarlicker this time. Thank you, Sarah Eve. 2 first names.
Sarah, we're looking for sponsorship.
No, Sarah Eve.
Sarah
Dude.
Eve. Sorry.
Dude.
Dual
She's not
named
gonna
people,
sponsor
we're
us.
looking for sponsors.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm really sorry, Sarah Eve. Wait, what was the idea?
The idea is giving up carrying a purse or wallet.
Do you carry a purse?
I don't, but I carry a wallet. Do you carry a wallet?
In my purse.
For real. So this would be a goocher for you. A double
what?
deuce.
That's not what a double deuce is, dude. But in my purse right now, I've got like a baggie of Cheerios, some Tic Tacs, 1 sock, a kazoo. I mean, my purse has got a lot of stuff that I really don't need on a daily basis. It might be kind of freeing.
So, but wouldn't you just start using your laptop bag?
I would use my pockets.
Oh, good one.
Which is not very fancy.
No, I think I would probably use like a Ziploc bag instead of a wallet.
But isn't that still a wallet?
I don't know what the definition of a wallet is.
Oh, you sound like just the guy to find out.
Julie, if people want to give us more ideas, where can they go to do that?
Email your suggestions to us at wagonpodcast@gmail.com. But of course, go to wagonpod.com to listen, view our show notes, including our research that we mentioned before.
And Julie, wagonpod.com has also lots of other ways that people can use to contact us.
That's right. You can subscribe to the podcast. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at WagonPod. Oh, and please give us iTunes reviews. That is really helpful to us, and it helps us find new listeners. Thank you to the Pleasure Kills for the use of the song Modern Problems. Also, thanks, as always, to our spouses and children for putting up with us.
Yes, thanks, families. On our next ride in the station wagon.
I mean, our goal really is to, every episode's to gain appreciation for something we take for granted, which is how much gender-specific language we use on a daily basis.
Right.